All right, so let's dive into this whole Queendom situation that's been unfolding.
Yeah.
You know, the BT Africa telenovela. Phenomenal cast. Don Thanteka King, Cindy DeLathu.
Right.
But behind the scenes, well, it's not so royal, shall we say.
Right.
The cast and crew, they haven't been paid since October.
Wow.
Right before the holidays, too. Kind of a tough break.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a look at the cast's open letter,
Okay.
the production company's response, and Minister McKenzie's reaction to all of this.
Well, his reaction definitely adds a whole other layer to this story. It does.
It does. So this open letter from the cast and crew, it's powerful stuff. They talk about facing a bleak, festive season, having disbelieving families, and just feeling completely ignored.
You know, that feeling of being ignored, especially after months of silence, really adds to the frustration.
Yeah.
These aren't just actors. You know, these are people with bills, families, responsibilities.
Right.
Their quote about facing an inescapable pit of a bleak festive season that's not hyperbole. That's their reality.
And it's interesting because they don't just point fingers, they also call for more regulation in the industry to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah.
There's a sense this isn't an isolated incident.
Right.
They even take aim at BT Africa and Clive Morris Productions, the production company.
It goes beyond just late payments. I think this letter is a critique of the power dynamics in the industry.
Yeah.
Who has the power? Who's vulnerable? Whose voice gets heard? Those are the questions that are at the heart of this.
Then we have Minister of Sports, Arts, and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, entering the scene.
Right.
You would think he would be sympathetic to the situation, but his response was, well, let's just say it wasn't the warm hug they were probably hoping for.
Yeah.
He basically says this approach helps no one.
Oh, wow.
He even brings up how he helped the National School of Arts because they approached him respectfully.
His mention of giving away free Chris Brown concert tickets
Right.
while the Queendom cast is struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, the optics of that's pretty jarring.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, does this point to a larger issue?
Yeah.
Is there a clear and effective way for artists to seek support from the government?
Right.
Or is it a system where you just have to know the right people make the right kind of noise?
It's a great point because it makes you think about how artists are supposed to advocate for themselves. Should they go through these formal channels, make these public appeals, or is it a combination of both?
It's a very tricky balance.
Yeah.
Because being brash, outspoken, opinionated, which is how the cast describes themselves, might get attention, but it also could backfire.
Right.
Formal channels can be very bureaucratic and slow,
Yeah.
but they might be seen as more professional.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
To be fair to Clive Morris Productions, they do offer an explanation. They say they hit an unexpected funding shortfall.
Okay.
So this production was a co-investment.
Right.
Meaning multiple parties were putting up the money. And one of the funders bailed at the last minute.
Wow.
The CEO told IOL, we had funds ready to pay for our share. Bet paid their share, but our funder let us down at the very last moment.
That last-minute scramble, especially with a whole cast and crew waiting on those paychecks,
Right.
really raises questions about the planning and contingency measures in place, right?
Yeah.
Co-investments are pretty common in the industry, especially for big productions. It allows these companies to share the risk.
So it makes sense why they went that route.
Yeah.
But there's always that what if factor.
Right.
What if one of those funders doesn't come through?
Exactly.
And then the whole production is in jeopardy.
This is where due diligence comes in.
Right.
That's the process of thoroughly vetting these funders to assess their financial stability and commitment.
Okay.
Was that done properly here? Were there any safeguards in place for this kind of situation?
That's what makes this story so fascinating. We have a cast and crew in a desperate situation, right? A minister whose response raises more questions than it answers.
Yeah.
And a production company facing this funding crisis.
It's a real tangled web.
It is. Where do we even begin to untangle this?
Well, let's start by digging a little deeper into this co-investment structure.
Okay.
Do you think the production company should have had a backup plan in place?
Yeah. Let's explore that. It seems like they were relying heavily on this one funder.
Yeah.
And when that fell through, they were caught off guard.
Yeah, it definitely highlights the precarious nature of funding in this industry.
It really makes you wonder how common these funding problems are in South Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear stories of artists struggling to make ends meet,
Right.
especially in fields like theater and television.
It's definitely not an isolated incident.
Yeah, and that brings us to you, our listener.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a similar situation where you weren't paid for your work?
Right.
It's unfortunately more common than we'd like to think.
It is.
And it can be incredibly stressful and demoralizing.
It really speaks to the need for stronger labor protections in creative industries.
Yeah.
Artists deserve to be treated fairly and compensated properly for their work.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, back to the Queendom situation.
Right.
Does the production company's explanation about the funding falling through, does it hold water?
Well, co-investment structures are becoming increasingly common in the entertainment industry, especially for larger productions.
Okay.
It allows companies to pool resources and share the risk.
Okay, that makes sense.
However, it also means that the production becomes reliant on multiple parties to fulfill their financial commitments.
Right.
If one part of that puzzle falls out, the whole project can be jeopardized.
And in this case, it seems like that missing piece was pretty substantial.
Exactly. It raises questions about whether there was adequate due diligence done on the original funder.
Right.
Due diligence is essentially a thorough vetting process to assess a funder's financial stability and commitment.
Okay.
Were there any safeguards in place to mitigate this kind of risk?
So what can be done to prevent this from happening again?
Yeah.
Both for the Queendom cast and crew and for future productions.
Well, on a smaller scale, stronger contracts with clear payment timelines and penalties for late payments would help.
Right. Those are essential.
They would offer some immediate protection for those involved.
Yeah.
On a broader level, industry-wide initiatives like standardized payment practices and transparent funding models could create a more stable and equitable environment for everyone.
Yeah.
Imagine a system where everyone is on the same page, from artists to investors.
It sounds like we need a system that protects both the creators and those investing in those creative visions.
Precisely. We need a system that allows creative projects to thrive without leaving artists vulnerable.
Speaking of vulnerability, let's circle back to Minister McKenzie.
Okay.
While his response might have seemed insensitive to some, it does make you think.
Yeah.
How do artists effectively advocate for themselves and their needs, especially when it comes to government support? Are those systems even working?
That's a really complex question.
Yeah.
Formal channels like writing proposals and applying for grants exist.
Right.
But those can be very bureaucratic and time-consuming.
And they often require specific connections and knowledge that not all artists have access to.
Exactly.
Right.
Public appeals, like the open letter, can grab attention and put on the pressure.
Right.
But they also risk alienating potential allies.
So it seems like there's no easy answer. There's no magic formula.
It often requires a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Building relationships with decision makers, mobilizing public support, and advocating for systemic change are all key components.
And maybe a bit of that brash, outspoken, opinionated energy that the cast mentioned in their letter. Sometimes you have to make a little noise to get noticed, right?
There's a time and place for that.
Yeah.
Choosing your battles and strategically leveraging different tactics are crucial to achieving the desired outcome.
This whole situation really highlights those power dynamics in the entertainment industry. You've got artists, production companies, funders, broadcasters, even the government,
Right.
all with their own interests and agendas.
And artists often have the least amount of power in this equation.
Yeah.
They're reliant on others to provide opportunities, funding, and ultimately their livelihoods.
Which makes situations like this even more disheartening.
It does.
It feels like a betrayal of trust.
Yeah.
Especially considering the Queendom cast are seasoned professionals who have dedicated their lives to their craft.
It really underscores the need for greater solidarity within the creative community.
Right.
Artists need to stand together, advocate for fair treatment, and push for an industry where everyone is treated equitably.
So what does this all mean?
Right.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
It feels like we've uncovered more questions than answers.
It's often the case with complex issues.
Yeah.
But those questions are important to ask.
Right.
They force us to think critically about the systems, the power dynamics, and the ways in which we can work towards a more just and equitable future for artists.
Absolutely. And to our listener, we leave you with this final thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
What does this controversy reveal about the true cost of entertainment? It's easy to get caught up in the glamour and spectacle,
Right.
but behind the scenes, there are real people, real lives, and real struggles.
And those stories deserve to be heard, to be understood.
Yeah.
This isn't just about Queendom.
Right.
It's about advocating for a system where everyone involved in creating the content we love is treated fairly and with respect.
It's a reminder that the creative industry, while captivating and inspiring, can also be incredibly challenging and at times exploitative.
It's a call to action for all of us artists, audiences, and policymakers to push for a more sustainable and ethical entertainment ecosystem.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those big questions. We hope this deep dive has given you some insight into the Queendom payment controversy and sparked some important conversations.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand the complexities and challenges facing the creative industry, the better equipped we are to advocate for positive change.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those critical thinking caps on. Yeah, it really does. It really makes you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it? The things we enjoy, the shows we love, they all come at a cost.
They do.
And sometimes that cost isn't fully acknowledged.
Absolutely. We often forget that there are real people behind the scenes working hard to bring those stories to life. And, they deserve to be treated fairly, compensated properly, and given a voice in the industry.
This Queendom controversy is a reminder that we need to be more aware of those dynamics, those behind-the-scenes struggles.
It is.
It's a wake-up call for everyone involved, from the artists to those of us who consume their work.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for introspection.
Yeah.
As an audience, we can ask ourselves, what can we do to support artists?
Right.
How can we hold the industry accountable for ethical practices? It starts with awareness, but it shouldn't end there.
It's about demanding better, isn't it? Demanding transparency, demanding fair treatment for those who create the content we enjoy. Exactly. We have a role to play in shaping a more ethical and sustainable entertainment landscape.
Yeah.
We have the power to make a difference.
Well said. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the Queendom payment controversy and its broader implications.
Yeah.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but these are conversations we need to be having.
They are. Remember, knowledge is power.
Yes.
And when we share that knowledge, when we engage in these critical conversations, we empower ourselves and each other to advocate for positive change.
So keep asking those tough questions. Keep digging deeper and keep using your voice to support a more just and equitable creative industry. Until next time.
Bye.